Welcome everybody to Pasadena, and thank you so much for joining us here at 2024 Tech Home Builders Summit. My name is Tara Pavia. I work for a master builder in New England. It's called Kenneth Bonnet & Son Construction. I do marketing and new business development. But for years, I also worked for an integrator. So I know enough to be dangerous, but not enough as I have my experts up here. So, but before we start, I would like to introduce Decibel. They are generous enough to sponsor this track today. And I want to introduce Marc Andre to come up and tell us a little bit more about Decibel.
Thank you. We're going to have an interesting discussion about lightning, but we need to power those lights. I want to take a moment right now to have you a small thought about the energy that we're going to need today to power all those lighting systems. I want you to see energy in the new lights. It seems trivial. We're building beautiful homes these days. Lights is part of our life. But what is lights without energy? And we take energy for granted. Today we talk about energy management. You think that the utilities will always be theirs. But for anyone living in California right now, the Bay Area is a very good example. How many blackouts? Cost of energy is going high, increased 10 to 20% per year right now. We need to have decarbonized energy. This is new territory. For the last century, we never have access to energy without signing a contract with the large corporations. Solar energy, storage, electric vehicles change everything in our life. And we need to build homes for tomorrow. So I want to take this moment also to think, and I appreciate living in a home that is fully automated, that have a great lighting system from one of this company. I will not, of course, share which one. I don't want to do too much publicity today about this. But one of the considerations is I always need energy, no matter the lighting system I'm going to need. So I think we're going to go into a very, very interesting discussion today. I don't want to talk about Decibel. Over the next 2-3 days, you're going to have the time to know us, what we're doing. We're going to try to power those companies. And we want to be basically the energy that is behind the scenes so we can build a better life for everyone. So thank you. And I think we're going to appreciate the discussion coming forward. Thank you.
Awesome.
Thank you again.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. So I'm excited to have this panel today. I think lighting is so impactful and really sets the tone and mood in any home and environment. And we're going to learn a lot from our panelists. And I think we'll just go through and introduce ourselves.
Okay, my name is Josh Christian. I'm the CEO of the Home Technology Association, which is an association that certifies integrators, which are the folks I'll be talking about soon, the folks that put in all the low voltage technologies in your home.
I'm Aaron Delgado. I work for Logic Integration. I'm their lighting and shade designer. So I do a lot of their technical layouts as well as design and everything that goes part of that.
It's amazing. Angela Larson. I'm our senior vice president for all of the professional side of our business. So work with our front end sales team and customer service teams and all of our business tools.
Great. I'm JoAnn Arcenal. I am the Director of Business Development for Crestron Electronics. And our team, we specialize in speaking with specifiers like you to get a better understanding of what technologies are out there and how you can put them into your designs.
Great.
Yeah, so I'm going to start off and we're going to take our turns down the road here. So I wanted to set off the conversation, which is a really important part about talking about early design for lighting. We're talking about lighting here, but anything low voltage should be designed really early in your process. Ideally at the architectural phase, but how often do you get that from the architect with all the low voltage figured out? It's probably very minor times on residential. Love this quote here from the famous Frank Lloyd Wright. You could use an eraser on the drafting table or a sledgehammer on the construction site. It's well said, right? Because if you plan ahead of time, then the construction process moves much smoother. If we think about these things too late in the build process, and for all the builders in the room, you could probably think through projects that you've done where that's happened, where the client finds about a technology late stage and like, oh, I want to have this, motorized shades or custom lighting or a home theater, whatever it might be. And now you're like, halt, wires have to be run, maybe you have to bring the electrician out, change orders from all sorts of trades, not fun. So that quote said many years ago is right on cue. It makes sense. So the technology integrator, that term, not a common term. So what we're really talking about is what's been commonly known as the AV guy for many, many years. But for a couple of reasons, the term AV guy should go away. First, audio video is just a small portion of what technology integrators do. And by the way, Aaron's company here, he is a technology integrator, like he mentioned. So I know his firm very well. It's an excellent firm. They do a lot of things. Like he mentioned, he didn't say audio video up front. He talked about lighting and shading because that's what he's a designer of. So your modern technology integrator, that's why you don't see AV written in there because it's so much more than audio video. So you could think of basically all the low voltage technologies in a home. And also along that line, there is a worksheet here that I'm holding one up. You see it on the screen. And if you, there's going to be a QR code later on that you could come up. You might want to take a photo later on of, not this one per se, but a later on image that is a form that you could use as a kind of a cheat sheet. It explains all the different technologies that integrators are putting in these days. And what's the point of this? This was actually requested from NAHB. I serve on a panel there, and they wanted this. They like custom builders wanted to know, like, what are all the things that an integrator like Aaron here could put in so I could give this to a client and know early on the different technologies the client wants. So you, as the builder, through a company like Aaron's, can plan for that. And then there's no surprises later in the building process because the technology is now kind of blended into the build cycle of the home. There's a set of plans coming up later, which I'll show you about that. So here's another interesting point to know. This is a key thing about this particular trade versus other trades that you're bringing into your projects, where you have framers, you have electricians, you have plumbers, and they kind of come in and do an installation and they're gone. And oftentimes the integrator is thought of as that type of trade. It's not. The good integrators actually have 3 different phases. The first is consultation and design, early stage stuff, way before the installation. So kind of tying into this earlier, when you hand a sheet out like this, what we recommend doing is, well, that's coming up a little bit later, as when and the timing you do that, but know that they want to consult with your client so they could find out what technologies they may be interested in and then design that into the plan set so everyone's speaking the same language, right? It's in the plans, no surprises later on. Their second phase, that's what you already know, installation, right? So that's their second phase. And the third phase is service. And the good integration firms, this might be a pain point that you've had if you've had some bad experiences with this trade. And maybe it's because they didn't return the phone calls when something broke, right? And they call you, like, hey, can you get the AV guy to come out here and fix this because they're not returning phone calls. The good firms, it's good to know, have a service department, a service phase, because service is an ongoing thing, especially now. We all know, think of all the smartphones and laptops and computers that we all rely on every day. Are they perfect? Do you have to reboot those things? Yeah, right? So technology does break. It does need maintenance. And as we also know, technology is changing at a pretty breakneck speed. How old is your phone in your pocket? It's probably not 5 years old. So technology, some of it will go outdated, and a good firm will stay proactive with your clients and make sure that the house is kept up to a technologically high standard. And importantly, they don't call you and bug you to the integrator. Like the integrator will handle that service, so it makes your life a little easier. So it's good to know about those phases. Here's a key point. Engage them, the integrator that is, before getting framing, HVAC, and electrical bids. That might sound odd, But for the points that we just talked about, when you get this stuff early, figured out early, the why of that, what's in it for you, is they will create drawings that the other subs that you work with are going to need to have accurate proposals. Because if their equipment's going to be in a space, they'll be able to get out the BTU calcs. How much heat do we have to dissipate in this closet or this mechanical room? They'll know where the electrical needs need to go. He could, Aaron could draw that out. So now your electrician knows how to, what's needed, where it needs to go, and where the lighting, on the topic of lighting here, where the lighting cans need to go, get everything all lined up. So doing that early on creates the drawings, which the other subs that you're working with will rely on. So a key point. What's in it for you again? Fewer change orders and project delays, kind of going back to the Frank Lloyd Wright quote. So we're talking about lighting fixtures. Doesn't it kind of sound odd? Like, well, what are we talking about here? Integrators, the old AV guys I know now selling lighting fixtures? Isn't that the electrician's job? Well, time's moved on. The technology has become much more complex with LED. The LED world is way more complex than the incandescent lights that we used to know. But they're not new to dealing with lighting, because lighting control systems that have been in homes for many, many years, everyone knows the brand Lutron. It's been around for decades. They invented the dimmer. There's other amazing lighting control systems now.
Just a couple other ones.
Yeah, I was going to say Savant and Crestron here at the table, which go out and you'll see their booths. They are all making amazing lighting control systems these days. And these integrators have been doing this for a long time. So control, a lot of times electricians were relying on the integrator to program the control system, because they're a little more techie when it comes to setting up laptops and programming the lighting scenes and such. So they're not new to lighting control at all. And because of the complexity of the LED fixtures, a lot of electricians kind of hate this, because if it doesn't dim right, or it flickers, or the lighting, the color temperature of the lighting doesn't match up, electricians don't often like to mess with that. But that's what designers like Aaron, that's the stuff that he does. He sweats those kind of details. Getting into the weeds with technology is kind of what this trade does. So because of that, and this is a big shift in the last decade, that the lighting manufacturers didn't even know this trade existed, really. They went right to the electrician or supply houses and didn't think of the integration trade, but that has massively changed, because they're realizing that the integrators are very technology-minded. They already kind of dig this technology. Let's start selling the lighting fixtures to them directly, because they're such a good resource for that. So that's a new trend. And that is a big takeaway that I want you all to learn today. So the lighting, we're talking just one part of the house, but you're going to see right here all the different trades that are affected by it. A total of 7. You might not have an electrical engineer, you might not have a landscape architect on every job, but you get the idea, right? For sure, you're going to have electricians and framers. Maybe you won't have a lighting designer, but often your projects are going to have an architect and an interior designer. All of them are concerned about lighting, and that's a lot of coordination. Do you really want to coordinate all that stuff and be that kind of orchestra conductor that's tying all that together? Probably don't. The technology integrators in bold, because they're the ones that kind of take point on that. If you're on a project with an integrator like Aaron, he takes point. He'll proactively, if there's all these folks on the project, he's in proactive communication. We were talking about this before the class today, about a couple projects he's working on right now in Colorado, where he's literally in communication with the cabinet maker and the interior designer and all these people to tie that all in together just to coordinate lighting, one part of the home. So this is why it's another benefit to have a integrator as the key point of your lighting design. This drawing right here is a drawing from Aaron's company, Logic Integration, and you could, can't really see a whole lot of detail here, but that's a lighting design plan. You're probably not used to seeing drawings like this from your typical integrator, but the good ones do this type of design work early on. And this is the type of early design work they can do before you get the sheets go out to the other trades for them to bid. So a question is, who's doing the lighting design? That's going to vary project to project. You might have a dedicated lighting designer. The architect might be doing true lighting design, or the interior designer, and that's fine. It's who's doing the lighting design is not the super important thing, at least as far as the integrator is concerned, because they'll work with whoever's on that project. And that you might see this on your own projects, right? As project, custom home, they're different. The players who's doing the lighting, you've probably seen this already, varies project to project. You know, a real sophisticated client that wants a real fancy lighting design is going to have a lighting designer. Even if the architect wants to do it themselves, the lighting designer kind of takes that point. But if there isn't a lighting designer involved, integrators like Aaron's company and many others are doing lighting design. Sometimes when you have someone like with Aaron's skill set, he is a lighting designer, so he's in-house talent. But even the ones that don't have that in-house talent will often work with, there are lighting designers now that kind of work with this trade specifically. So you could often go to them and they'll have a lighting designer resource for you. And what lighting design versus lighting layout is, and Aaron will probably speak a little bit more about this when he takes the mic, but a lighting layout is kind of like what the architect needs to get something through code, plan check. It's not a design, it's 4 cans and a fan, just basic lighting to get it through code. But on a luxury home, lighting design is much more complicated than that. There's art, where's the furniture going to be laid out, what kind of moods do you want to put in this house, what kind of feeling do you want to have. That's what true lighting design is. So know what the difference is on that. And again, you could ask your integrator for specifics on them. I'd be more than happy to dig into that. And you might be wondering through this conversation thus far, is this going to upset my electrician? Like, am I taking business away from the electrician if he's not selling the lighting cans? Well, that's not necessarily the case. This is also a kind of case-by-case basis, but there's been a lot of synergies and relationships building between integrators and electricians, because electricians, like I said before early on, the LED is kind of a pain for them because of the problems that could come up, especially with the lower end lighting system, fixtures that don't perform that well. So if they could put that burden of like, okay, you specify the fixtures, I don't have to deal with that and warehouse it, fine. And there's sometimes even profit share. If the electrician feels like, hey, you're taking away some of my dollars out of my pocket, then there's sometimes some profit sharing in there as well. But just the point to take on there is it's not an us versus them or any of that kind of stuff. There's good relationships and synergies happening there, and oftentimes electricians are happy to let that go. So 3 key takeaways I want to share with you before Aaron speaks is that you want to know that an integrator is a vital design team member. That also they are a great resource for lighting fixtures. And they also make your job easier because they will take all those technology questions from the client and also from you. You're kind of your go-to resource for all things technology. So here's that resource I was telling you about earlier. This is the one you might want to take a photo of. We came up with this sheet here which has some resources for you. These resources are this project technology assessment form right here that I was holding up earlier, which is made by request of custom builders. There's also how to find great integrators that are HTA certified. Our association certifies the best integrators out there. Logic Integration, Aaron's firm, is certified. They have to go through a very lengthy process to wear that badge. And so if you've had bad experiences with this trade, and you may have, then look to an HTA certified integrator because they're a vetted group of folks. And also, if you want to know what these things cost, you might be wondering, like, well, what does a home automation or smart home or lighting fixtures even cost? We built this brand agnostic calculator that's at the website. So all those are on this little document. If that QR code, you could download this document for use later on. Thank you for your time and attention. And now I'm going to turn this over to Aaron.
Great, thank you. So yeah, like Josh was saying, I do lighting design, I do shade design for the custom integration channel. Originally, I did start off, I was in the integration channel previous to my lighting experience. I moved to a lighting manufacturer, did a lot of years there. Then I said, hey, maybe I can merge the two together. So I found a great firm that wanted to expand their lighting offerings, and they brought me on. So that's kind of a little bit about me, but essentially, what we do, and kind of to piggyback off of what he just said around the electrician conversation, because I think that's the biggest one that we see, or a lot of builders have a question about, right, is, how is this hurting my electrician? You guys have these great relationships with these electricians that you've built over the years. How can you make them happy? And to what Josh mentioned around, it's all about the profit motive at the end of the day, right? Some electricians make most of their money off materials, some make most of their money off of labor. It just depends on their business. My job as the lighting designer, the lighting integrator, engineer, whatever you want to call me, is to have that conversation with the electrician and figure out that, right? And figure out what is it that's going to work best for not only the builder, the client, but also for them. And whether that means that we need to cut them in on, some fixtures here and there, whatever that might look like from their perspective. But it's all about just finding that common ground, because at the end of the day, it's really just for the client. It's not really for me. I mean, it's great to make a sale, but at the end of the day, I make beautiful homes, and that's what I like to do. So when it comes down to that conversation, what I often find is most of the time it starts off with, yeah, let's start a little profit sharing situation here. But by the end of it, they see how many more holes they're putting in the ceiling. They see how many more light strips they're installing. They see how many more wires they're running, and that just becomes a moot point. The next job I'm on with them, most of the time they don't ask for that, right? They shift their profit dollars over to labor, which again, why it's so important to get us involved ahead of the electrical bid, right? A great example, it's kind of a bittersweet situation for the client. I mean, the client knew it was coming because I prepared them for it, but they had an electrical bid that was done from the architectural design. Me and my team got my hands on it. Their electrical bid went up 60 grand. And that was mainly materials and labor from the electrician. Electrician was super happy about it, but at the end of the day, that was something that could have been avoided, a hard conversation with the client that could have been avoided if we would have just got us involved ahead of time and we were actually bidding on something that was accurate to the client's wants and needs versus what the permit set was. Good example of that is this current plan set. So this is the original plan set that I had gotten. This is actually done by an architect who prides themselves on how well they do lighting, and I'm not going to say that they did it bad by any means. I think they did a great job for a permit set in general, but it's definitely a lot different. The end result is a lot different than what it actually turned out to be. So on the right, you'll actually see the final result. Some big differences here that you'll see is instead of just some random, 6 cans in the living space, we threw some linear light up in the cove to give us some accent there. The client that we were working with is very minimalist, but also wanted like a very warm atmosphere in the home. So we, conceptualize that with the client. Up in there, it's kind of hard to see in the photo, but there's actually recess mini multiples. It's about four multiples in each of those slats. The designers and I got together and they were like, it'd be really cool if we put the slat wall in the ceiling. I was like, bet, I can light that up really nicely. So that's just some of the different areas from what you saw on the permit set to what the end result was. And here's some more photos of it. We accented that centerpiece there. We also accented the slats on the opposite side of that. And it's not very easy to see in this photo, but if we go back and see where our cans were originally in our kitchen over on the bottom side of the photo there, they're all down the middle of the pathway between the range and the island. It's hard to tell, but I have some trimless up there, and I also have them positioned over the countertops, which is where you should be putting your lights, not behind you. It's really hard to cut vegetables when you're casting a shadow over yourself. So these are just some of the things that, this is one end result. I have many others, right? The plan that you saw was actually a very preliminary plan that I'm still working through designers with, but it's in the moment real. I'm gonna actually go back to that real quick just so I can point out a couple things on that, if that's okay. So in here, what I would want to point out is like the gym area. The gym area, I have recessed multiples in there. Those are 2s. I got them all adjustable as well, so that way, depending on, we didn't have a fitness plan or basically where all the equipment was going to go. I also know that there's going to be mirrors on 2 sides of that there, so I want to make sure that those are adjustable to emit the light away from that, so we're not blinding them while they're on the treadmill. But there's tons of different things in here. Path lights throughout. That's something that I'm super passionate about, is being able to navigate through the night. But to get you an idea of kind of what we really do is, when I sit down with a client, I don't just sit down and say, cool, what color temperature do you want? How can we make this work, and put it on a plan set? I'm talking about eye height. I'm talking about eye age. I'm figuring out, realistically how they live their lives, not only from, what technology should we put in there, from whether it's Dolly, DMX, whatever, if it's tunable lighting, or if we're just going static, warm, dim. But I'm also speaking to them around their future and how they're going to live their life. This particular home is going to be a first level for them, like first level living for them, because they plan on getting old in this house. So when they get old, they're only going to be able to live in one, realistically not go up the stairs or down the stairs anymore. So this is really important that they had the amenities of what they would want at the final result for basically the rest of their life. So it's so much more than just, let me pick a color temperature, right? Or let me pick this, right? There's so many things that you have to conceptualize. Like every lighting manufacturer, you might have one manufacturer that says it's 3,000 Kelvin. You'll have another lighting manufacturer that'll say it's 3,000 Kelvin, but they get 2 different chips from 2 different manufacturers. And then when you sit them down, one looks 31, the other one looks 29. That's important to know, and I guarantee you, electricians, they do a great job at what they do, but they don't have the time nor the resources to sit down at a test bench like I do and actually measure these things and figure out what's going to look best in a home. And that's why you get us involved. I get you next.
Okay, I'll take it.
Tee you up.
Yeah. Hey,
Controls are important.
Love it. No, this is great, and I'm so excited to see you all here in California. This is great. Hope everyone's having a good first day. This is kind of an exciting topic because we've got such a great group up here where we've got Josh and Aaron talking about all the different ways that they can help you bring these things to life and all the different resources that are available to you with Integrator. Like, there are a ton of resources for you to dig into this and make sure that you give your client the options that they need, because the most frustrating thing to them is to get to the end of the project and realize, oh, I didn't even know that that was a choice, right? So these are great resources to understand and learn from in the beginning. I'm gonna talk just a little bit about the different types of products or solutions that will make up kind of what becomes what Aaron uses and what those different types of products are. And I think JoAnn will take us home with what the consumer experience ends up being. So hopefully you get a pretty good, well-rounded idea here as we look at this. But as I talk a little bit about the what and what makes this happen from a product perspective, right? The first thing I really want to think about is, how are your clients going to interact with these types of systems, right? And Josh, you said that at the beginning, right? Traditional controls has been a thing that has been, a way that people have interacted with lighting for a long time. And I mean, a really long time. Just like turning a switch on and off is a form of control. I'm going to activate this thing to turn on and off. And that's a really important part of the system and will continue to be an important part of the system. But controls are evolving rapidly as the fixtures evolve. I think Josh said it really, really well, which is we've gotten a huge opportunity to change how we interact with the lighting, in part because the lighting technology has taken off on a curve like no other, right? And now that we see what can happen with low voltage fixtures and fully tunable fixtures and millions of colors and so on and so forth, we have this massive opportunity to do really cool and amazing things and control them in really unique ways. So think about not only your traditional kinds of keypads on the wall, but think about simple things like voice control, right? We're all constantly talking about what I think is somewhat of an overused term, but an important term of AI, right? What does that look like? How does that affect how the lighting works in the space and the layered lighting? And all of the things that Aaron talked about shouldn't mean that it's complicated to use, right? And so what are those types of pieces? And so think about that as you're doing some of your design work and you're talking to your homeowners and you're doing technology assessments, right? Do they like to pull into their property and have CarPlay detect that they're at their gate and set the lighting in the home for that kind of welcome experience, right? Is that a thing that they should be able to do in the types of homes that you're building, right? Should they be able to have an NFC tag that knows the location that they're at in the home or different places? There are so many different pieces of technology now that make this experience so seamless, right? And you hear about them all the time, right? You think about, why would Angie be sitting on the stage talking about geofencing? Well, easy, because that's where you know where the car is, and that's where you know to activate the home, right? These are all becoming really important things as we look at how to activate and turn these kinds of pieces on. So think about that experience for the client, and I know JoAnn will talk more about that. Think about the flexibility that Josh brought up as you have this insane technology inside these fixtures. And I think you said it beautifully, right? 20 years ago, the best thing you could do with a light fixture was turn it on, turn it off, and if you were really good, you could dim that sucker, right? But fixtures were big, they were heavy. We used to have big control platforms to dim them. We used to have to test them just to make sure that they would dim up and down properly and where the limits were and how far you could dim them up and down, right? And even that kind of dimming technology was complicated as many as 15 and 20 years ago. And now we see each individual fixture can be controlled. And so you look at that layout that Aaron showed you, right? It used to be that you turned the kitchen lights on, and if there were 12 downlights in the kitchen, then all 12 of them came on at the same time, all the time, forevermore, right? Like literally, all at the same time, forevermore. That's the way the house is wired, and that's the way they were going to react. Now you see things like each fixture being able to be communicated to. And that's what this means when you hear the term digitally addressable fixtures, right? Is, oh, I can communicate to that fixture individually. So why do I care about that? Well, maybe one of those downlights that Aaron was showing us is above the kitchen sink. And really all I need is a little bit of light above the kitchen sink when I head down to the kitchen, for a midnight snack. Or maybe all I really need is this or that. And the ability to have that kind of individual control can become very important over the life cycle of the home. Because this is not a once and done deal. This is a home they're gonna live in for a long time, right? What did you say? They were gonna get old? Is that, I love that they're gonna get old, right? So this is the life cycle of the home, and they're thinking about those different types of flexibility. So think about that type of design flexibility, and that technology that brings you that will be really important over the life of that home. Also think about, what might be a small feature to some homeowners, it might be the biggest feature to other homeowners, is how they think about living with wellness, right? And how do they think about that? And maybe it will change, right, over the course of time, right? Maybe rooms need to be lit differently over, a 10-year period or a 15-year period. Not only does the furniture change, but the eyes get older, the makeup of the home, the children grow up or move out, or different parents move in different places. All kinds of stuff changes. And so you gotta look at what can that mean and how do we deal with the wellness of the home. So we all know the term circadian. I promise not to drone on about it. I swear that is not gonna come out of my mouth. We all know what that looks like and what that means, but you can just take a look at how it changes the overall experience in the home. And circadian doesn't have to be something your client even thinks about, right? I walk up to that keypad if we're using that keypad experience, and at 10 in the morning when I touch that keypad, the light can come on at a brighter color temperature than it does when I touch that same keypad and that same button at 10 p.m. Okay, and what's really cool about that, that JoAnn and I can commiserate it with tonight over at the bar, right, is no integrator had to program that, right? And that's the magic of things like circadian is, could you always turn a light on brighter at 10 a.m. and dimmer at 10 p.m.? Sure, that's what lighting control meant, but it was a pretty hefty programming experience to understand what time of day it was, what button you were gonna press, how those changes were gonna take place, and now any control system, any platform that you're gonna use is gonna understand what that means and how to react to the home. So if you wanna think of that as something like AI, wow, think of that, because you're gonna really be able to give your clients something very, very special that's gonna be something they aren't even really expecting. And it's easy, right? And so that's an important part of what you can do with daylighting or circadian. So think about that as kind of a cool technology space. Also think about all that layered lighting, right? We're showing a ton of it. Aaron showed a ton of it in all his different images, right? He's talking about downlights, he's talking about strip lighting, he's talking about all kinds of extrusions, we're talking about the lighting coming in through the windows, right? So we're not just talking about artificial lighting, we're talking about natural lighting, and all of that plays into this experience, and how can we have that sort of tuned at any given time, right? And make sure the professionals like Aaron can make that experience sing, right? And think about what this looks like. So I think that's a really important piece of what you're looking at, but also make sure that the end user can function in their own home, right? And that's a big piece of it, right? So I don't want to tell you when I started in the lighting industry because it will date me just dramatically, but I remember when the integrator had to set the timer.
Oh.
Right? Nice. Right? That was the only option, was an actual integrator had to come and change the timer for someone that said, hey, I really actually wish these lights would come on 10 minutes earlier, 20 minutes earlier, whatever. That used to be like a professional service. And now we think about that today, right? Well, one, your lights should know when to come on because it should know when it's getting dark and how you want to handle dusk to daylight and all those different things. But even still, the client can tune some of that themselves. So I think those are really important aspects.
So to your point, I don't mean to step on you, but
No.
It goes exactly with what you're saying. So I just got off the phone with a designer on my way here who was going over cabinet plans, and they were worried about the strip lighting in some of the areas being too bright while they were sitting down watching TV. And I had to explain to them, essentially, I can set that strip lighting to be 4000K when they decide they want to do cleaning in full brightness. And then when they turn that TV on, I can set it to be 1800K at 10% perceived dimming. So I don't think it's a problem, right? But they
didn't know that, right? That's a real question for them.
Yeah, they had no idea, and that's just some of the things that again, why we need to get involved early and talk about these things, because these are things that can go over the designer's head, or anybody who isn't aware of what we really can do with control.
No, and I think it's real, because that's real usability. It's one thing to design this, perfect home that they're going to live in, and really this is the thing, but then they have to be able to use it and make these kinds of adjustments. So I think that those personalizations become really, really critical, and those are things that any controls manufacturer is going to champion, is that ability to really personalize without having to have heavy code and programming and those kinds of pieces. So that's really important, and there's lots of different ways to do that. You can create scenes, you can create all kinds of different activities, but keep in mind that that's an important area from a usability standpoint. And then, hey, thank you for this fantastic intro, because I do think it's really important to think about, what drives the power of the home. And man, has lighting changed dramatically in the last 20 years. It used to be that your lighting was going to pull a huge amount of energy inside the home. That's not a problem for you all anymore. Now you're dealing with direct appliances and all kinds of other stuff that are pulling energy, right? And it's not typically the lighting, because the sustainability steps that have gone into lighting over the last decade have been massive. So not only do you have these huge improvements to the fixtures themselves and how they're being driven. I mean, we used to have modules to control a single light that were like this big, you guys, with heat sinks and all kinds of different stuff, like heat sinks. Oh my gosh, what a word, right? We used to have all these different things that we used to have to deal with. And what is that chandelier gonna drive in the front entrance? All of those kinds of issues have dissipated, right, over the years, because we now have this hugely efficient, lighting source that's happening inside of the home and everywhere. So it lends itself to this layered lighting and all these other activities. But you also get these control platforms that now have built-in features like, can I understand how much energy I am using? Right built in to those circuits, right built into the intelligence of the panel. So you do start to think about all the way from the power coming from, I'm gonna say the curb, but that's not always where the power comes from, right? The power is often coming from somewhere else. And think about all those different sources and think about why you might want to know that as you think about your lighting plans, and that idea that lighting is a great step into sustainability because it gets your client aware of sustainability and what that means as we think about that. So that's a little bit of the product side, and I know you're going to talk a little bit of, hey, what the client gets to experience when they do all this.
Thank you, Angie.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we're talking, we can do all of the planning that we want. We can spend hours designing the lighting plan within a space, and we can install all of the amazing technologies, But what good is that if you can't understand how to use that home?
Totally.
So, imagine, this is a little bit of a hyperbole here, but it's probably not too far off.
I don't think so.
For a lot of homes, especially, this is a Lux track. You have clients that are of a certain caliber. They're expecting a certain level of simplicity, of ease of use when we're talking about technology. They don't want to either go into a room and see every single one of their lighting loads require one switch each, or be so confused by the control system, that interface, how they interact with that technology, that it's useless. So, we're going to talk a little bit about that. So a smart home, regardless of what brand we're talking about, what technologies we're looking at, or what applications they are, they should be simple to use, they should be easy to understand, and effortless to navigate. And Andy touched on it a little bit. We can dare say in the future, that smart home should probably learn how to adapt to your way of living, to your client's way of living, so that it truly is an automated, a truly smart home. So how are we looking to do that? So we saw, let me just show this. So we're looking at one of the most simple ways that you could interact with your system, right? Your smartphone. So if you look at this, this is your general, interface. There are icons, there are bold words out there. So super, super easy to use, very simple to understand. If anyone has touched a smartphone in the last 10 years or so, you can probably then pick up this this touch panel. So this touch panel, whether it's convenient to have on the table, on a wall, whatever the case, again, super easy to use. Everything is very clearly laid out, regardless of the brand. Again, you should be able to just get in there and understand what you want to do and how to do it. And then even just bringing that down to even simpler terms. So we're looking at a keypad here, simplifying the lifestyle, creating these scenes, good morning. So now, we're talking about the artificial and the natural light. So perhaps we're balancing that out. Maybe this homeowner, I know, again, in your Lux track here, a lot of these homeowners, a lot of times I'll ask some of these homeowners, like, what is your level of luxury? And they say, not having an alarm clock. So that's one of the things that they love, and they love waking up to that natural light. So good morning, so either, the shades come up in the bedroom, and it's going to wake them with that natural light coming in, that's streaming through and gently warming their faces. But on a cloudy day, perhaps, or, in the wintertime, when perhaps at 6 a.m. it's still pretty dark out, in most of the country, we can balance that with that artificial light. So they still have that consistent wake time, that gentle wake time that they love to have, but now we're using the artificial and the natural light to balance that. And then you have all of the other scenes there, again, that's going to be personal to that homeowner. Or simple lights, up, down. So, so the easiest ways, to really just take advantage of all of that planning, all of that labor, all that technology that we have integrated into these spaces. So here we have this beautiful space, as we're talking about the end user experience, that customer experience, we have this space. I mean, how much more simple can we see, a space that we can really just enjoy? It's very open air here. It's really just a place that we're going to lounge. Now, when I show you how much technology is integrated here, so we have all of these different subsystems here. And look at all of the integrated technologies here. We have lighting control, both in the ceiling, both, in wall, by the pool, the lighting, the water fixture, that water feature. There's a statue there. You have all of that. We're balancing that out. We can actually bring down some of these shades, again, to bring down the natural light that can come in. Perhaps we want a little bit of privacy in the evening, whatever the case. But there's so much technology in here that it's so beautifully done that, when we're looking at it without all of that, it's just a space to enjoy. So now, when we're talking about technology and luxury, that's exactly the end game there. That's our goal, where you have a space teeming with technology, but that's not at the forefront. You know what's behind the scenes. You know the infrastructure that you've had to plan for when you're looking at your designs, when you're working with your integrators. But your client doesn't have to know that. They just want to know that when they walk into this room and they press that entertain button, that scene, the lights are going to come up at a certain, a certain brightness. That water feature is going to come on and it's going to be illuminated. The pool is going to be illuminated, and different features in their home. The music, as we're talking about lighting as part of a whole home experience, perhaps the music is going to come on, the audio. There's a fireplace over there, the faux fireplace, and then there's a display. So as part of this whole home, that lighting is such a huge part of that. But again, none of this technology is taking over that space. So wanted to just show you, share with you some real life examples of beautifully done homes throughout the country. We have all the technology, including the lighting, integrated into this space. So this one is a private residence in Vancouver, Canada, and actually Premier Automation and Design. They're here somewhere, so if you see Kevin from Premier, let him know that you saw this design, and it is really cool. So this is a home that is absolutely teeming with technology. Just to give you some for scale, this is the home that we're talking about. So imagine all of the lighting, all of the shades that are going to be balancing that natural and that artificial light within this space, and how much technology would be required for that. But again, just like most of your clients are going to want to do, they'll want that integrated into the space without having to see it, without having it be in their face at all times. So here we have your lighting, your shades, audio, we have the video and the climate, which is your basics, right? They have a lot more than that, but they have all the basics that most of your clients are going to have. So this particular family, this is when we're talking about luxury, this is the luxury that we typically have in mind, right? They love to entertain. They have everything from an intimate dinner party where they might have 10 to 12 guests, or several hundred people. You saw that house. I mean, they could fit quite a bit of people in there. So they love to just do that, and they love to be able to press a button. They actually have 27 touch panels within that space of varying sizes. They're not going to all be like the 10-inch or like even the 15 inches. Some of them are 5 inches, but they do love to be able to use their technology in whatever space that they are in. So they love to entertain. They can press that one button to entertain, and then they can, the music comes up throughout the space. All of the displays, the video, all throughout the home, because it's distributed. It's all showing the same imagery, so it's all uniform within the house. The lighting and the shades, they're adjusted, so all of the shades, let me go back to the home, all of the shades in the upper portions of the home, the second and the third floors, they're going to close because typically that's not where their guests are going to be hanging out, right? But everything on the bottom, on that first floor, is going to come up, so everyone can enjoy that wow factor of their, of the scenery that they can enjoy. And everybody is welcome to come out into that open area outdoors. But let's say they want to, that's been how they have had it for, the last 8 months. But now that we're coming into the winter months, maybe they're just making that tweak, like a little bit of the lighting control that they tweak every once in a while. So let's say 3 out of the 5 times that they've had a party, they press entertain, but then they tweak the lighting a certain way. perhaps, in the future, AI is going to jump in and it's going to pop up and say, hey, you've done this, the last couple times, do you want to create a new scene? And, and then this can be another scene that you can have, or you can edit this scene. What do you want to do? So think about that as the luxury that you're providing for your clients, for them to, this is what they love, this is what they enjoy, and they're able to do this to the fullest because the integrated system that they have there is allowing them to do that. And they can tweak that on their own. They don't, as Andy was saying, we don't have to roll trucks every time something happens. So, that's another aspect of that luxury that you're providing to your clients. There's a certain caliber, they have certain expectations, and you're able to deliver that to them. Just a quick note here, they also, when they entertain, that's a self-playing piano on the left side, and that's actually integrated into their distributed audio system. So no matter where you are in the house, you're going to be able to play that self-playing piano. So that's something really cool.
Sure,
that they have.
Of course.
Yeah, why not?
I mean,
We all
Hear it
have
in one room?
yeah, don't we all have that?
Yeah, I have 3.
That's amazing.
So now I wanted to bring us into a different mindset of luxury. So we're talking about a smart home, easy to use, simple to understand, and very simple to navigate. So now we're going to look at the Viscardi Center in Albertson, New York. And this is a home that is, it's actually a learning home for people with different abilities. They are able to live in this home for a certain period of time so that they can understand and adapt to how living in the world, in the real world, applications with their varying abilities can really look like. So this is, and it's also not just for the people that are adapting, but it's actually a model home for universal design. So it meets all of the universal design standards and CAP standards for design. So this is a really great home. And again, thinking of this as a luxury, when we're talking about lighting here, think about that person where their dexterity is on the decline. So they can't physically use that manual clutch for their shades. So instead, they're actually left in the dark because they can't open up that shade or until someone can do that for them. So think about that as a different way of thinking about luxury, because it really is. For us, we might take that for granted. We can, press a button. We can do, we can use a manual clutch if we needed to. But for these folks here, that is a level of luxury that a lot of people really just don't think about. So again, this is for people of varying abilities, and we have all of those different subsections of the technology in there for them to be able to adapt to that space, because you can only do so much training within an occupational therapy lab, right? So bringing them into this home, allowing them to just really, live their lives as if this is their own home and adapt to the ways that their home would be able to to provide that high standard of living for them. So really wanted to show you, just a different standard of luxury that you're able to provide. It doesn't always have to be that massive home where, the self-playing piano. I mean, it doesn't have to be like that. This is a different level of luxury that we can provide to our clients, to your clients, which, again, balances that lighting, that technology, so that they can enjoy that natural lighting that, unfortunately, a lot of them possibly cannot because of different abilities and different restrictions for them. So just wanted to show that. And
That's
then, yeah,
awesome.
Great. Yeah.
Erin, is like a random question. So this is a random question. As JoAnn was talking, what would you say to the group who says, I have a client who's like, technology, I did that once and it's just like, I'm over it. I just want, some basic this or that. What's your kind of response to that? And how do you help clients? Okay, well, all right. We have inside thoughts and outside thoughts. Okay, whatever.
Oh, my inside thought would be you had an integrator that did it wrong.
Okay.
But
Yeah.
I would try to essentially walk them through how it's meant to make your life easier, not harder.
Not harder.
Right? You should be able to live your life through a button press or an app push, not through 17 switches or whatever the case may be, trying to figure out your shades, why this one will go up and this one won't go up at the same time with this one. And, that's just things that just means your integrator did it wrong. Find yourself an HTSA or HTA certified person.
Make your life a lot easier.
Make your life a lot easier.
Yeah, absolutely.
I know we used to say things like, just because you can do that doesn't really mean that you should, right?
Exactly.
Just because you can have a button change, with every season doesn't mean the client wants to be confused about what their system's supposed to be doing, right? So I think those are good advice,
My,
right?
my favorite thing is, to your point,
Fireplaces.
Fireplaces.
you don't have to
Okay.
control that.
Good job.
Okay, all right, it's a good example.
Yeah.
Well, just to go around and just the talent here and the great advice, because I do think vetting out the right integrator is super important. I do think it's more value if they have a showroom. I think if your client experiences lighting and what it can do today, it's that aha moment, right? And I always say to some people, you're probably going to redo your bathroom or your kitchen in like 10, 15 years, but you're not going to pull down the ceiling. So make the investment now on good lighting and understand what you're going to be, enjoying, because it really does set the mood and the pulse and the joy of your home. It accentuates all of the hard labor of the construction and the millwork and the painting and the designing. And another thing is that get your designer involved in this lighting process. Maybe they go to the showroom, they're learning about all the different beautiful aperture type color tones and things that can actually blend in and not be like these, what does it call it? Wall acne, as they call it. Mm-hmm. So there's so many elements that when everyone's brought early, you can have these discussions and everyone's on the same page and everyone understands what's about to happen and can plan accordingly. And I also say, with the systems, a good integrator has all the systems represented, so you'll be able to see what Savant's doing, you can see what Crestron's doing, you can see what Lutron can do, you can see how shadings goes up and down and your choices. So I think a good integrator will touch upon all of that in a service. A service plan can be super helpful because some people offer that, some people you buy into it depending on what kind of service you'd like to have, but they can actually get to things before there is a problem, or upgrade things, or retrofit something. So I think with everyone here, I think it's a valuable lesson of how to work with an integrator and getting them in early.
I agree, and a point I'd like to share as well about the value of a good integrator. If you have a client that's really budget conscious with technology, it's still have them go through this technology checklist, because this is really kind of a cover your butt document that you've at least explained to them that these are the potential menu of things, and lighting, of course, is on this. Energy management, power, it's all on here. All these different technologies to say, hey, these are the things as your builder that you may want in your home. Maybe you don't want any of it, but they're going to want some of it because it's like internet's on here. But then, so me as your builder, I could accommodate for that in the plans. Now, if they're really constrained on budget, it's still worth getting a great integrator involved, because they might, now, Crestron and Savant are amazing companies, the best out there. There, at the other end of the spectrum, you have a lot of DIY stuff you could get from the big box stores and Amazon, and hey, I play with the stuff too. I play with the good stuff and the junk stuff, so I could kind of see what it's like. And still have your client, if they're a little worried and they want the technology, but they want to do the DIY stuff, it's still good to have them talk to an integrator, because integrators often play with the stuff in their own labs and they know its limitations and what it can and can't do. The experiences that you saw that Angie and JoAnn showed of these homes are phenomenal, top class. You can't do that with DIY level stuff. Or if it does, it might work for a week. And then you throw it out and put it in the dumpster because it doesn't work reliably. So it's good to consult. Remember, that's step one, consultation. And then because the client, they might find out like, oh, okay, your budget's this, that product won't do what you think it does. Let's put some money into the pre-wire now, get the wiring in there, get the wiring infrastructure, and then later on when the budget allows, put the real system in that's gonna actually work and scale with you in time, versus one where you rip it out and you start over and you're really frustrated. And it's cheap to put wires in early when they're all planned out, and really expensive to do it later on. And even though everything's kind of going wireless, there's key technology you don't want to do wirelessly. So won't get into that. That's a whole other hour conversation. But just know the consultation part is well worth it, because they could say what things you can rely on wireless and what things you don't want to have on wireless, and just run the cheap wires early on.
I think, Josh, it's just such a great advice point, because you don't know what's going to be hot to your client, right? And so we hear that a lot. I mean, we were just with some of our technology integrators a few weeks ago, and one of the stories they told us was sort of like, all was lost, right? That's how, all was lost, right? They were not biting on speaker technology. They were not biting on, that's too complex. That's not what I want. That's not where I want to be. I want a simple home. This is my lake home. All the different kind of things that you hear. And finally, the integrator in kind of like a understanding the technology assessment, like what is the plan for intelligent power in this home? And they said, well, I think we have a generator, that the electrician's going to deliver. Oh, so you're interested in backup power and how to make sure you have this? Yes, well, let's talk about what that looks like in a luxury home like yours, and let me educate you a little bit. And the next thing, this goes right back into an education on what the future of technology really looks like. And it was really hard for the integrator to pick which window to walk through, right? Which, am I walking through the entertainment window? Are they interested in lighting? Are they interested in this or that? But a very good, technology professional that you partner with will be able to get to that, and that will make all the difference, in the home.
Final point on this project technology assessment. I have a builder that actually uses that. And it was really funny. We originally had a conversation about this client that he was going to bring to us, and he said, hey, I brought him through, the assessment, and they don't want anything technological, but they're really interested in lights. Well, that turned into that $60,000 plus on the electrical bid, and a lot more technology than they really wanted, what they thought they wanted. And once they got to see how it all worked together, it really turned into something much more than what the builder was expecting. But the client is extremely happy. So
that's what it's all about. Yeah. Happy clients.
One thing I would encourage too is if an integrator or people want to come in and educate about lighting to your project management team, I think the time is well spent. I know it's hard to get everybody consolidated in one room, but for them to understand too, because they're the ones also overseeing everything and coordinating things, and there's just so much to learn. So I recommend that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, Josh, I thought you did a great job by saying there in the lighting space, there's a lot of influences. So I'll call them influences, right? There's a lot going on, and keeping everyone on the same page can be
a challenge. And that's a huge takeaway. Like I might 3 takeaways today. I hope that sinks in, right? That the value of the integrator on your projects is massive now. It was a kind of a nice to have back in the day. I've been in this industry since 1995, and it's radically changed, just the attitude. I used to be on the biz dev side, going out talking to architects all the time, and they used to be like, yeah, if I have your super rich client, I'll put in a control system, Now, that attitude's changed so much, and especially the pandemic really changed that, right? Because now people were locked in their homes for a long time, and we all realized how much all of us are reliant on technology. So, to do your clients service and to make your life easier, when you get that good integrator who's like part of your team, you can rely on them. You don't even have to necessarily yourself stay up on your technology yourself. That's a full-time job. You reach out to guys like Aaron, and they're more than happy to keep you up to date with that and make sure that your clients' needs are met, which again, keeping them happy. It's all about that. And the lighting is such a key aspect that, when you see these newer systems, they're more complicated, right? And we talked about that. Incandescent light was kind of easy, and now we're at this LED side. But wow, what you can do with them!
Now we're trying to match incandescent light.
Yeah, exactly. The warrant.
We spend a lot of time on that. Yes, thanks, Aaron. And we spend a lot of time on what you said, which is like smoothing out that experience, right, and making sure that an under cabinet light and a down light and a light strip and a can all have that seamless look, and that's a huge burden that controls manufacturers take on, of how to make sure that is all balanced. And because if you don't do that and you don't have a professional technology person to help you through that, you can end up with something that's less than.
Not great.
Hodgepodgey, not easy to work.
That's great.
Well, I want to thank everyone again for coming, and thank you all for everything you contributed today. I hope everyone got a little something from that, and just the importance of getting integration at the beginning of a project, making sure it's a good integrator with the right resources that can help you. I also think when we talk about the client, that the client is trained at the end. Sometimes the integrator, everyone's talking to the client and they're not really absorbing the information. There's so much to learn about this home that I think it's really important that there's a check-in, and even to ask the integrator, how do you educate the family? I always say, more than one person should be there learning the system, so someone else is absorbing it, and actually a teenager or a kid is probably going to be able to handle it better than anybody and explain it later. And then a check-in 2 weeks later saying, hey, how's it going? Have you found, what can we tweak? What's going on? And sometimes even, how can we label your lighting? Like, how is it working that now, oh, in the garage I really want, whatever it may be, to be represented as one of the...
Tony Stark.
From the start, yeah. Anyway, thank you again, and thank you all.
Thank you.
And
Thanks, all.
we'll see you throughout the week.
Thank you.
Thank you.